Continue now. The Rabbi summary. We're getting now to Eis Tezayin. Rabbi to Mamshich Besifim Shalachar is as it continues after describing now the avodah to make the world a Didele Yisbarach, the person himself, starting with him, a Didele Yisbarach. So there's avodah of the tzova, the three explanations in tzova: soldier, time, and unity. Iskalulus. Unity with other Jews, and also unity also means using all of his koiches. Then he continues in the following seifim, and that would be Perek Yud Aleph. In order that Yidden should be victorious, and for this they're given the king's treasures, and first he explains, the greater a person is, the more victory is critical. Whoever is greater in stature, so the midah of nitzachen is greater. Whether he means midas nitzachen uniquely or every midah. We'll leave that unanswered, I don't know. He seems to be pointing that the end of midas nitzachen. So where would midas nitzachen be most pronounced? It's the king, who is the greatest of the people. Shoulder, head and shoulders above everybody else. That's how the first king, King Shaul, is described. That means that his seichel, everybody else's seichel, their head is in his level of the midas. In the etzli, midas hanitzachen beyosis, by the melech, midas hanitzachen is very intense. Also tzarich iyun, because l'cheda, it's not so much negeya here, who's godel, who's not godel. What's negeya is, who's it negeya? It's the king's realm. So of course it's most negeya to him. On the other hand, everybody, it lives in the realm, so they're all affected by an enemy. But he is responsible. So it doesn't mention this in the code of being, because he's the melech and the leader, therefore the victory or all matters of state are more negate than anybody else. It's not the point. The point is that he is greater in stature. Different mitzvah nitzachan is greater, independent of him being the melech l'chayre. Tzorich iyun. At any rate, he explains there are two kinds of milchama. Yesh milchama shenyonel lishl shalol v'lovos boz. There is a war where the point is simply to gain territory or gain property, to plunder, literally. That's not the ik of milchama. The true battle is survival, and to overcome the opposition that seeks to eradicate your very existence. And amongst the differences is as follows: war which is simply expanding territory and gaining resources. That's a calculated war. How much is it worth to invest in this? Could die, such that it should be appropriate for Yadach according to the gain. When the stake is the enemy and he has to be vanquished, as in then there's no limit, and he squanders all the treasures. Both the treasures he personally amassed, and also the treasures that his forebearers amassed generation after generation. If it wouldn't be midas and nitzachan firing here, not only would these treasures not be used, not even shown to the public. Here, the extreme, they wouldn't even be shown, they wouldn't even know they exist. They know that there is, but what they are, they have no idea. In order to achieve victory, however he opens them, that's one thing. We say to Mizeh, so they're accessible, but beyond that, he squanders them without a cheshbon, means he gives without a cheshbon. in order to achieve the intended victory. Even though that they're distributed through the officers, that's the Rabbeim, and in general, the Yoshvei Oyel, the leaders, the Rabbonim, but the point is that it gets to the foot soldier. They are the ones that make the chief victory in the trenches on the ground, actually engaging the enemy. To understand what is this treasure that Gebishti gives, the Melech gives.
Question.
Yeah.
In the Mashal, you're saying that the king is squandering all his.
The king is what?
Squandering. He's showing all his aitzris. How does this help the soldier on the battlefield? Wow, I see something beautiful from the king that his great grandfather. What does that mean in dollars and cents to the soldier?
Hold on,
Rishi,
1 second.
The tissue box in front of you, I think, no?
Time is asking.
Okay, please.
Time is asking
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
How the squandering, the vazvez, squandering the treasures, how does that help the front row soldier be inspired or help him by seeing that the treasures are being squandered by the king?
It means that it means that it gets unlimited. He gets it unlimited. He's not getting a portioned part, and then it runs out. And when I get more, he's got everything. Whatever the king has is completely given freely, and it's all of it, and for every soldier, to whatever degree. That's what he means by bizbuz. That's beli cheshbon to begin with. That's all there. And the Eibish's Eitzer, as we're going to learn, is not just inexhaustible in quantity, but in quality, as we'll see. That's what this Maimer is about and the previous years. Okay. Now begins the Maimer. Loving, it's a Lamaila, so to understand the treasure that's given, Maktim Levayim, Maimer Tekun Zohar, so the Frierdiker Rebbe first prefaces by the quote of the Zohar, quote, Eirin Sof Lamaila Adin Ketz Ulamata Adin Tachlis. The Eirin Sof is above without end and below without end. Also, and Tachlis unfathomably. So he says, first we have to explain first in the Lamata Adin Tachlis, the reach, the descent of the Eirin Sof. And then we'll get an appreciation of the Lamaila Adin Ketz. What does that mean? This we learned in the previous years. We see, as we learned in the previous Maimarim, the infinite expression of Hashem in the lowest creations. You recall, one of the simple observations is that there's, I don't even know if virtually is the right term, but there's infinite creations, even the Elam Hazeh. There is not a number, friends. There's not a number for the atoms in the universe, and certainly not for the subatomic particles. There's no number. It's infinite. And Afal there is Gashmius, and it's finite, but within the finite, it's infinite. Mitzius. That's one, and many other examples that we gave. That there's no diminishing. Kayom be'ish, kayom the species that continue reproducing as be'ish, bemin, the species continues, and then that's also infinite. It just never depletes. The next generation is not weaker than the one before. And then kayam be'ish, and there are those like the sun and so on that remain unchanged throughout time, not diminished. Again, how that's squared with science that claims that the sun is weakening. That's addressed in the scientific world. Akapana Pitera, it's not. So we see the infinite, we see the blikvoli all the way down, Pashat Elam Hazeh. And there were this was explained at length over the previous years, previous Seifim. So to appreciate the reach that Hashem's infinite presence is manifested even in the lowest levels. The dogma brought in Chassidus, which is helpful, not so much right now, but it's helpful, is the ability of the master teacher, Dafka, the master teacher, to explain the most profound concept to the simplest makabel. That requires a very, very deep and extraordinarily talented and deep understanding of the concept. Only if you really deeply understand it can you articulate it simply. So first he explains the mata, the descent, the reach, the gewalt of the reach. Again, in the most I just gave, that this profound concept, the Eibishter brings it like the master teacher conveys that even to the lowest makabel. What that means too is, maybe not too, but primarily it means that even in Elam Hazer, down in our limited, finite existence, we know that there is a God and God's accessible and we can appreciate. We can speak of the infinite, and we do, even here, Dafke here. So then he explains the first part of the Zohar, above without end. And he says, concealment of the light, concealment after concealment, ascent after ascent. And this was addressed in the previous years. The obvious question is, the higher you go, the greater the revelation, not the concealment. The simple pshat is, Pashut pshat is, concealed from us, further removed from us, beyond. That's Pashut. That's the Pashut pshat. There was great nuance there that the Kayach HaGvul is deeper, a deeper expression than Kayach HaBli in from one perspective. To get to Etzem, all is equal. But once we move away from essence, the paradox is that containment is a deeper expression than of the self, because that's a reflection of Lamaila. It's a deeper expression, investure than revelation. He's our Gibber, HaKovish HaSitzvah. He's the mighty person. Not that he gives vent to what he feels. That's natural. That's easy. The Gibber is that he doesn't express. Where's the person more invested? Where he naturally expresses himself or where he controls himself? So in terms of the viewer, if he's controlling himself and not saying that Lashon Hara, nothing's going on. He's sitting there like in silence. There's no Gilui. But be'emes, what's going on, there's a tremendous energy going on here by the one who has something usually to say and doesn't. You're not saying. And the Eibishter made us this way because that's a reflection of Lamaila. The paradox that the Gvul Dafke, therein lies the deepest investure. The mashal I gave earlier, for the teacher to bring down the concept, the profound concept, to the simplest makabel, that's the really deepest expression of the teacher's talent, much more than to express it on his level of articulation. The big kunst can to bring it in simple oisias to the makabel. That's really a deeper investure of the hafla, of the wonder, of the talent of the master. Again, but that's all in the Seder Ishtalshalis. If we go deeper to Etzem, as he's going to some degree talk about, everything is equal. For God, everything is equal. Equally significant, equally insignificant. Equally significant if he chooses to grant it significance, equally insignificant if he chooses not to. In essence. Okay, so we proceed further. God, I'm reading this reams and reams of stuff that people are writing. I don't really get what they're saying. Whatever. It's a simple thing. We started saying this. When you learn Chassidus, there's this, as I said the other day, funny. It's funny. We're talking about the Eibishter, And you can get completely lost in the oir and language and forget what we're talking about. This is God revealing himself. So speak that way. If you just remember, there's a McGill student, the Panyavich Talmud sitting here like, oh, you're kidding. You're talking about God. Tell me, what are you telling me about him? It'd be much clearer. Things become much simpler. Number one, yeah. And then as a foundation, everything we're going to learn, everything, this is a foundation of everything, period. Is to remember this. I'll mention it as we go along. With God's help, we'll understand what's going on. And that is the following. We're talking about the Eibishter. That's number one. Hello, Eibishter. Talking about the Eibishter. Number one. Number two. The Eibishter Atzmos, there's nothing to say. There are no words. Aleph, Beis. As we repeat, maybe to close the door on. It's critical to remember. The Eibishter is not a creator. He's not a creator. It's a decision. Hachlotas atzmos. And that is fundamentally inexplicable. As we always point out, Dire betachtonim is not why. It's what. It's what is the purpose. But there is no answer to why should there be a purpose? Why should there be a creation? No answer. Nisave. Nisave means, in our language, it's beyond rationale. There is and cannot be a rationale for the whole creation. It doesn't have to be. Now, sometimes we use the word God chooses, also not a good term, because chooses implies that there's something to choose from. There's already something. So the best we can say is, Hachlatas ha'atzmos. Allah b'rtzoynei. There arose not just in his will, there arose a will. The decision to make. So that's important to remember. That everything that exists in every divine manifestation, listen carefully, is because the Eibishter decided he wants a creation, and integral to that is a purpose to it, and the purpose is dire betachtonim. That decision is right there in the get-go. Nis'ava kadosh baruch hu liyishtei dire betachtonim. Now, what's implicit? I think we said this. I don't know. No, we didn't say it. What's implicit in dire betachtonim is huge implications. Primarily, alien and tachten. If you want to dire betachtonim, you're giving rise to the notion of there's low and there's high. I want a dire. That's a big novel thing. There should be anything. And what's that anything? High and low, which means at the very core, the achlata decision of the Eibishter is he wants to create a system that's all part of, and a binary one. The key is it's all rooted binary, alien tachten. And because he wants alien tachten, therefore all the way up we're going to learn there's this binary, gvul and bli gvul. Lower than that, oir and kalim. It always comes down to the interplay between yes and no. That's positive, negative. This world, there's no other energies, friends. It's yes or no, and everything works that way. Your computer is a billion yes and no's very quickly at every juncture. It's off, on, off, on, off, on, yes, no. The whole metzius of reality is binary. Negative energy, positive energy, light, dark, on, off, yes, no. Why? Because that's all the nisave. He wants a dire betachtonim, and that means there's got to be a plurality. And therefore, we're going to find it in the highest levels. That's Aleph. That's Aleph. The second, this is now much more nuanced. L'chayda for us to appreciate. Because he wants a dire betachtonim, so he wants, therefore, that his shtalshalus should naturally, and you and I, everything naturally, logically, experientially, appreciate the Elyon, not the Tachten. Because the Elyon reveals, the Tachten conceals. So the whole Ishtalshalis is higher, then lower, lower, lower. The paradox is this Ava the Tachten. But what needs to be, I'm trying to convey is this, what God needs to put in place for this Nisava is that experientially and certainly instinctively and objectively, the Elyon is greater. The Elyon reveals, the Tachten conceals. Push it. The Elyon reveals there's a God. As you go down the ladder, the Tachten eclipses that reality gradually to Olam Hazeh, where God can be ignored and denied altogether. So this is, therefore, Chassidus will speak that, and we're going to that law of the Ein Sof. In order to have Dira B'Tachtonim, you have to firmly establish that Elyon, that's the virtue. That's where there's Gilui. That's where truth lies, not in concealment. Then it'll come out, the whole, no. That Dafkin, the Tachten, Dafkin concealment, Dafkin Gvul, Dafkin Tshuva over Avedas, all the Dafka. But that's like the Chiddush that must come out later. The natural skit's going to be, don't sin, strive for higher. That's what we want. We can't naturally want Chayshach, we've ruined it. You've got to want and strive for and appreciate Oyer. And then you have to learn and discover against your will even, because God plots awesomely against man, and there's going to be the Yerida, because that's what he wants. There's going to be the Yerida, and starts in Gan Eden to set up. Adam says to her, you blame me for the sin, for death? Your Torah precedes creation. It says there, Adam kiyamas ba'ayah. And God's answer, silence. You're quite right. It's part of my awesome plot. Noir alila b'nei Adam. The dafkin did the dafkin the tachten, but that comes later. Let me give a marshal for this that will help us explain. All in business? No, you are not in business. So when you want to attract an investor in your business, got this great idea. So like any business, what's the overt? You set a plan and you minimum risk. What you want to show is you invest here, there's a minimal risk, and profit is the probability of profit is very great. And the bigger the profit, the less the risk, the more attractive business is. And you've thought of every possibility and anything that can happen to attract an investor and for your business to grow for yourself. When you start a business, it has to be with becheshbon. That's how you're going to make profit. Yeah, that's bechitzonius. The pnimius, the real businessman, that's where the big money is made, when the juices flow, is where everything goes topsy-turvy. Things happen and you couldn't foretell the market. And the one that's able to exploit that, these become the big billionaires. We're able to exploit the fault lines, and that's where the big money is made. That's where the business really takes off, is dafka, if it's going to, in a radical way, is when things don't go according to plan. So, but that's like the pnimius hakavon. If you're going to attract investors, invest in me, and then, God willing, when things go crazy in the market, we're going to walk away. And you want, for yourself, you cannot start a business that way. So there's two levels. Bechitzonius, your cheshbon. That's what you want. You don't want surprises. You want to sleep at night. You want guaranteed profits. You want to know you bought, you sold, and here's your margins, and here's your profit. But pnimius, there's this desire for something sudden, unexpected, and all topsy-turvy, because that's when the real radical profit can be made. You're not looking for it. You don't even want it. You made your business to protect you from that. But when it happens, that's when the juices flow. That's when the big tainug is. That's the tainug. That's why here you made you turned it around. You found a way to make this profitable. That's when you really your real talent comes out. So it's a kind of a marshal for Ishtalshalas. For the whole purpose. The Torah says, here's the Torah. Don't sin, do mitzvahs. That's it. Follow the plan. Here's the recipe. Stay on the straight and narrow all your life and you'll be a good boy. But b'pnimius, they're going to sin, they're going to mess up, and do tshuva, and that's the big prophet. So that's in the dafka and the tachten. But what I'm trying to bring out is that this whole dafka, that's concealed, that's not obvious, and cannot be obvious. Cannot be obvious. This avakadosh baruch hu lisa dir tachtonim means that we should appreciate the mile of the alien. And after peken, it'll end up being in the tachten. We have to strive for the alien. Strive to be good, not sin, and go higher, dafka higher, and then it's apiseichel, because the alien reveals Hashem. That's beautiful. The tachten doesn't, per se, until we transform it. So we have to remember all of this as we plow ahead and talk about dargis. Where does it all begin? It all begins with this ave of atzmos, liyas, dire b'tachtonim. And these are all stages in the realization of that essential, inexplicable desire and decision of Hashem. And moreover, if you really understand properly, we will find parallels to every level in our own souls, because that's the point. It's a relationship with us, and it's all for us. So every darga that's spoken, somehow we have to have in our world a parallel, otherwise it's pointless. Okay? Sure. It's a tall order, friends. Let's go. Okay, so after explaining first our flaw of the matamad in Tachlis, where you see the Hashem's infinite presence, even in the lowest level, even the Elam Hazeh. Then he explains the Mailamad in Ketz. And what's that? Helam achar helam. Again, helam means, we said two things. It means from us, helam, and it also means that the Koyach HaGvul, Bemis, is deeper. If you recall last year we spoke about, there's the round tzimtzum, that's the classic, and the square tzimtzumim that are lifnei tzimtzum. And the square is in of Hagabala, because in a square, every point is closer to one edge, further from another. It's all gvul. So this is rarely spoken about, but there's tzimtzumim in the Ein Sof, but they're not round tzimtzumim. They're square. What's that? That's a Koyach HaGvul. Let's go further. The kivin shinyan shalaitz soften v'toma. Since the Eitzet, now again, pshat, hidden from us, just like the moshel. The Eitzet is hidden from the people, and now he gives it. So let's remain with this, and that's the portion. Helem achar helem, the simple level means, the Eitz of the king is behind barriers and barriers and barriers in a vault somewhere that we don't even know where it is. And that's given. So behind the kivin shinoshal Eitzeru, sofon v'tomar, it's hidden, put away. Komos v'chosem in karoya, hidden and sealed from the eye of any viewer, in brackets. In the kedei leid Elohavin by Mikya, said, hayoyke shalom. Comes to understand with greater depth the preciousness of this hidden treasure. First he explains the mile of Gilui, of the revelation. First he explains God's reach, God's revelation. Again, that we see his infinite presence even in the most finite condition, even Elam Hazeh. That's the revelation of godliness that we can, with the discerning eye, discover. That will lead to, which is up to now, appreciating the mind by the cats, and that's the Eitzer. That's where beyond revelation, one with the Eibush himself, as it were, beyond revelation. Okay? Now let's go. Hashem should help. We should be mechavan to the inyonim. Mamshe ba'mayim, he continues now. This is this year's ois perek tezayin. V'hinei beis inyonim. This is what he says. The Frierdiker Rebbe. Beis inyonim me'elu doirin sof l'mayla mayla adin ketz u'lemata adin tachlis. He says a gewaldige statement. Hein beis madreges doirin sof baruch. There are two levels. V'yesh hefresh gadol banim, and there's a big distinction. So this is right away a red flag. Levels in doirin sof. Not just levels, but big difference. What does this mean? First, he's going to spell out the question. Till now, this Bayera Pirish the Eirin Sof, till now, till this ois, the Frierdiker Rebbe explained the meaning Eirin Sof of Lamayel Adin Ketz Matin Tachlis. Simply, what does it mean? Simply, simple in the level of Nista, which is what we're learning. What is it? It's the reach, the effect. Eirin Sof ascends, and the nimshach lamata mata, and descends. So there's two directions. The Pa'ula, that was till now, where you see the Eirin Sof. It's reach. Shaliyah lamayla v'amshach lamata. If we're talking about the greatest heights, that's one address. And Amshach Lamata is the other extreme address. There are two separate places, obviously, where you see the Eirin Sof's expression. The Eirin Sof expresses it clear. This has to be clear. We can't go further. The Eirin Sof, Hashem is expressing his infinite expression in two extreme ways. The highest, removed from us state, hella machar hella, and the other extreme is very close to us, mata mata, we can see the infinite creatures Ne'elam has. To the addresses, that we understand. The effect of the Eirin Sof, the reach of the Eirin Sof, better word maybe, it means the Pu'ula. But now he's saying no, now he's saying something else, Gewalt. But now he's saying that's not only in the effect where you will find the Eirin Sof, as it were. You'll see the infinite of Hashem in the most sublime levels above the true infinite, and you'll also see the signature of infinity in the Elam Hazer. You'll see his imprint in both places, but the two places are opposites. Now he's machadish. Shebeiza in yon b'lamayla adin ketzemat in tachlis yeshnu gam b'mokem echad. There are two levels in one place. I don't mean place gashmi, obviously. The Eirin Sof kishu ba'atzma. That's what he says. In the Eirin Sof itself, not in its expression. And moreover, but it's of Atzmi, based Madreges, and what does he say? There are two levels, and he doesn't stop there, the Frierdiker Rebbe. There's a big difference. So you have to understand what this means. So the Rebbe begins now unraveling the mystery layer by layer. Number one. Should we stop here? Okay, with the next two words. Okay, before we go further, introduction. For our purposes, we need to know this. There is Mo'er, the source, and Oir, the actual revelation. Mo'er is, as he's going to explain, define it, we doesn't use the word Mo'er, but it's the level of Yechelis. Now, what does Yechelis means? Yechelis Pashat means that for God, anything is possible. That level with Hashem is before there's any kind of any revelation. Anything is possible. Reveal, not reveal. So there the Rebbe is going to say now, that cannot be the level he's talking about. Two levels. Because when everything is possible, you can't differentiate between there and the two levels. It's anything, yes, no, could not be. So you can't speak on two madrigas. What he's going to explain now is that when the Frierdiker Rebbe says there's two levels in Yeshefresh Godel, we're talking Oir, not Mo'ir. The next step, for as the Mo'ir begins, meaning as God begins to articulate his grand plan, which begins with actual revelation. So we'll see tomorrow what this means. There it's shaykhs to speak about two levels, even as a source, and a big Hefresh Godel B'nai. Okay, so we'll continue tomorrow. Again, if we just think about, what are we talking about? There's the Eibishter, Nisave, Fadire Petachtoinim, and this is the logical, for us, because we've made it, the logical process by which it's going to unfold. You bear that in mind, it can happen. All right, friends, to be continued with Hashem tomorrow.